Hi, everyone. I am here with Mia, and we have a really cool announcement to make, something very unique that we're going to be holding here at Firefly Hollow Wellness Center. And this is related around a psychedelic organization. So before you go, what is that? What are you talking about? I want to really give you an introduction to Mia here and have you share a little bit about your background and why are we doing a psychedelic organization? What the heck is that?
Yeah, so a psychedelic club is basically a structure, a container to talk about the emerging psychedelic industry and the psychedelic space. So there's a lot of research that's coming out. A lot of it has been mainstreamed over the last several years. There's a lot of regulatory policy that's coming out and a lot of promise for what these treatments are able to provide people and help people with. So we're basically providing a local structure, a community, where we can safely talk about what's happening in this space, talk about how these medicines can be beneficial for people, what they look like, when access is going to become available, and obviously talk about the history of psychedelics and what has been available in the past versus what's coming in the future.
So that's like amazing because I know that when people hear that term, there's a lot of stigma around it and a lot of judgment, a lot of misunderstanding. So I'm curious if you would have to, really guide anyone towards some basic things that we can pop into the notes, resources, anything like that. What is the emerging information that's coming out that can maybe just briefly help us to really rethink how we look at these particular types of medicines?
Yeah, absolutely. So, historically, psychedelics, a lot of people think about self-exploration. They think about the 60s and the 70s. And then all of that kind of stopped, when the government got involved. But that is now resurfacing. There's a lot of opportunity for therapeutic treatments. There's a lot of promise in the clinical research that's coming out. So, really, there's a ton of resources available now. There's a lot of professional medical associations that are hosting podcasts. If you go to your podcast, whatever platform you use, and you just look up psychedelics, there's a lot of opportunities there to learn. There's actually a lot of great Netflix series that are on that talk about fungi, that talk about mushrooms, that talk about psychedelics in general. And even YouTube is a great resource. There are some documentaries that are on YouTube as well. So really, in today's world and today's application, it's a therapeutic approach. And yes, there's still a component of self-guided exploration, and we do plan to talk about that and embrace that in the organization because there's always going to be self-guided explorers.
Right. You can't
So
really stop that. But
you
there's
can't.
also safety issues around people not knowing or misunderstanding, and especially because
Correct.
it's becoming kind of trending. So I know you said about this organization is really to help people if they're still going to do it.
Right.
Not obviously at the club. There's not any of that.
No.
There's no providing anything like that. There's no hooking people up with
No. Full stop.
providers. Yeah, but it's just really to people don't necessarily get involved in something that's dangerous for them.
Right.
Specifically, I have a friend of mine who's really into herbal medicine and she's been following this trend for a long time. And she says there's a specific type of mushrooms now that are on the market that you can purchase online that are in a gummy form. And that particular type of mushroom actually is toxic to take in large doses over time. And so if you have a child in your home and you have all these gummies and they eat them, it's like she says like a big issue. So, but psilocybin on the other hand, she's talking, differently and she knows all about that stuff. And we're going to share more information that she just shared. I'll share your top documentaries, podcasts
Right.
for for vetted resources,
Yeah.
with you in the notes here. But I want to just also share about your background
hmm
in the medical cannabis industry, being on the grassroots when that was coming up, and now we have these dispensaries
Yeah.
available. Tell us a little bit about your journey with that and how that kind of compares to what's happening now with psilocybin and psychedelics.
Yeah. So when the medical cannabis space kind of emerged, there's regulatory oversight and there's a medical program in the state of Pennsylvania and nationally. Each state's a little bit different in how they focus it, but it's almost like retail in a mask.
Mhm.
There isn't a ton of focus on patient education. You can get a little bit of education at the dispensaries. I worked for two what are called MSOs. They're multi-state operators and in operations and outreach roles. and working directly with patients. And most of the patient education that occurred was from me to them. So, sometimes we had a pharmacist involved. A pharmacist would kind of talk to them about other medications, contraindications, and things like that. But again, there really isn't a huge emphasis on patient education. So, on the flip side, with what they're doing with psychedelics, there's a massive push for patient education. And there is a lot because it's clinically applicable to so many conditions, right? So if you're talking about the use of psychedelics in various forms, and that could be psilocybin mushrooms, that could be MDMA, LSD, there's a lot of different things that are being clinically tested right now. There's a lot of clinical trials that are going on. So
very promising ones.
Very promising.
Like I think
ones.
MDMA is in its final stages of being approved for PTSD for veterans.
That's correct.
And the veterans, if you're a veteran out there, like this is something I'm so excited for you because I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
I know, me too.
It's amazing.
Yes.
But I honestly, when I first was hearing about this becoming trending, I was like, oh my gosh, are we just going to have people get lost in the drugs again, like in the 60s?
Yeah,
Is this going to be a thing?
So.
Is it going to be toxic? And even that necessarily, there was spin on that, on my perception of what actually was going on, because I wasn't really in that age group. But I'm really excited to learn more, because the more I learn, I'm going, this is fascinating. And that's why we're doing this, why I'm so excited to host you here for gatherings and information, because that's what we do here at Firefly. We want to illuminate, to educate, to bring people out of a space of fear or judgment, and so they have a better understanding for themselves for making educated choices, especially if this stuff's happening, you said, pretty fast. And
very fast.
And if there's a way that we can avoid any harm or anything that potentially would not be very, very, very healthy for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just this past week, the Breakthrough Therapies Act was introduced. That's a bipartisan bill. It's a federal bill that would be able to open access for veterans and multiple medical conditions to be able to use psychedelics and MDMA. I mean, and that's huge. It's bipartisan support. There is just a huge need for this, obviously, for not just veterans. There's so many different people that, mental health disorders affects, chronic depression, treatment-resistant depression, PTSD, anxiety. I mean, there's even discussions about using it for other things like gut-related issues. I mean, the list just kind of goes on. So there's a lot of promise. There's a huge emphasis on safety. Obviously, clinical trials are intensely promising, but it's not a fix-all. It's not a fix-all for everybody. It's not going to work for everybody. We still have to be really mindful about people's medical histories. We have to be mindful about the medications that they're taking. There's still risk involved. People still talk about bad trips, and bad trips, you can categorize them that way, but they're really just people experience difficult trauma. Things are coming out. We always say that psychedelics are, they help you find your truth, right? And unlike traditional treatments for anxiety and depression and things like that, they just kind of mask the symptoms, right? Psychedelics get to the root cause. They dig down deep. They help you bring up things that you've suppressed. They help you make realizations. So it's a self-actualization tool. It's a truth-seeking tool. And these tools sometimes dig up bad things, right? They sometimes push you to go in really uncomfortable situations. But when they're used in a therapeutic setting with licensed professionals that help you prepare accordingly, they guide you through your journey, then they also help you integrate it afterwards. There's a huge dialogue around set and setting in this space right now, which is insanely important. So yes, like we said, you're going to have your self-guided explorations, but when used in a therapeutic setting, it can be life-changing for people. So that's really, the premise behind it and why there's so much interest, because there's just so many people. I mean, if you look at the statistics and the data, there's so many people that this can help. And it can also help take the burden off of our healthcare system.
Oh my gosh, mental health crisis in our country is like huge. Crazy. And I think it's really interesting that when something works in the underground, or people start talking about it, they share it, and the truth of how it's really supporting them really does come out. I think that's the same thing with the medical cannabis for people who needed it for particular health reasons. Then it came, now we have dispensaries and we have that. So tell us a little bit about what a club or gathering will look like and entail. What type of speakers or researchers, or we have mycologists, like what type of people will be there, and what can we expect if we come to one of the meetings?
Yeah, so everything that you just said, the organization that we are putting together we really want to support education of all types, right? We understand again that people are going to walk down this journey however they see fit. Everybody needs education on harm reduction. Everybody needs education on what's available. Obviously, legalities are really important. So the organization plans on doing things that aren't just, lectures. So yes, we plan to hold lectures with experts. Yes, we do plan to support, the medical practitioners and the licensed professionals that want to get in this space. There's a huge need for that.
Yeah, so
regionally.
Training. So if you're a psychotherapist or a counselor or
Right.
someone that is
Social
interested,
worker,
yeah,
all of
and you
that.
want to have access to these trainings as they become legal and appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do plan to support that. Hopefully, we do want to have scholarships available to help people get trained and connect them with resources for training. We do eventually hope to be able to provide scholarships for patients or clients that want to have access to these therapies. Obviously, it's going to be a much longer conversation until insurance and the whole mainstreaming gets involved. So, and they are, for a lot of people, they're expensive and they are inaccessible. Because it does take a lot of resources to appropriately walk somebody through this journey and get them from where they started to, their end goal. So it's expensive. So we want to be able to provide, better education. And I mean, on the flip side, it is about community building. It's about relationship building. It's about sharing. It's about having a safe space to talk about your journeys. If you are a self-guided expert, if you go on a journey and something wild happened and you want a space where you can go to people safely and talk about that process
without judgment,
and that's what it's about. And then, obviously elements of fun, right? It's an organization. Psychedelics are great tools for fun, great tools for self-exploration, great tools for, finding new things out about yourself and being able to connect with the earth and find your truth and things like that. So, we do want to have just relationship building activities, fun activities, shows, lectures, like I said, ceremonies, education classes, and then maybe even like music and marketplace and art. There's still a huge component around, with psychedelics around creativity and self-expression. And that even is healing in and of itself.
Yeah.
So, if we can provide space for that, where people can pursue art and talk about music, and there's so many, various aspects that are intertwined with this, that echo what's happened in the history and mind expansion and all of that stuff. So it's going to be really interesting how this unfolds. But we do plan on having touch points in all of those areas because I think all of them are just as important, right?
Yeah. Doesn't Steve Jobs came up with the iPod? I
think
the
so.
story
Yes.
after
While on
psychedelics.
Yeah.
And so I think not only does our culture and our nation need mental health support, especially for the industry, but innovation for our economy. What can we do to solve these problems with everything going on with the earth and having a deeper connection with the self and who you really are? I think you said your truth. I think expanding your own consciousness and awareness, overcoming judgments of others and yourself. I think that creates a lot more awareness of how we're all interconnected. And I think that's so needed in the world. So if there's something that can really expand that awareness, that's safe and that can be monitored in a way that's legal and supporting that person depending on their background, if it's appropriate for them and safety, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I am all for it. So last question, I want to know, what are the rules for the club? Like, what are some basic things that we should be aware of? And again, we're going to be posting these events so you can see them up on our website. I'll be sharing them as well with the website that for you guys, that will be in the comments here, but what should you expect and what should you know not to do?
Yeah. So like we mentioned earlier, full stop for usage or sourcing or buying or selling or teaching, all of that stuff. Obviously we don't promote the use of illicit substances. In the future, as that changes, I don't know what that's going to look like. But right now, we do need to function within the legalities. We are a 501c3 and we're becoming a 501c3. So that's a full stop there. So while we can talk about it and learn about it, there will be no use at our events or anything like that.
And I will lovingly set firm boundaries with that as a business, because that's something that is just not helpful for us or helpful for the movement and what you are trying to promote here. And I'm all on board. So.
Yeah. And then outside of that, really the other main thing is that we do, because of how the organization is structured, we are bipartisan. So we can't politically support anybody, as individuals, that's your own thing. But as an organization, we do just are really mindful. We'll help provide tools, right? We'll provide access to what's going on politically from a regulatory standpoint. We will keep you informed of that, what's happening in Pennsylvania. But as the club, we don't support one side or the other. We just support access, right?
Yeah.
We want the best option for everybody. And when those bills become available, when those frameworks become available, we'll get you educated and we'll show you ways that you can support individually and how you can become involved, because there is a huge need. Last year there was a psychedelic education day at the Capitol that I attended. It was wonderful, but it definitely needs more support, right?
Yeah.
Our legislators need more education. They need to understand how impactful this can be.
Yeah.
So there are voices that are needed. There are voices that are needed internally with the organization too. Mm-hmm. We are looking for volunteers. If this, what we're doing resonates with you, or you have a history and you want to share it, or if you want to get involved in any way, we are looking for volunteers. We would like to have, what I loosely call like community liaisons, right? Just people that are in the community that can serve as resources, that can help people get, enrolled or signed up for events, help with marketing efforts, help find places that are willing to house us, like Firefly Hollow, and give us a home, right? So we can put together education and activities for people in the community. So we are looking for various people to do that in the Dauphin, Cumberland, York, and Lancaster County areas. That's kind of like the little ecosystem that we're building right now. Hopefully we can expand outside of that. But those are the main areas that we think that we can be really beneficial to the community. And obviously, too, we're open to creative ideas and alliances with various organizations, other organizations and clubs. We're looking to make friends in that space and see how we can support one another.
I'm so excited for this. So if you've watched this, I just really honor you because it's so much information. There's so much more to come. I encourage you to share this with anyone that you feel that this may be supportive for them, especially people who are maybe more skeptical about this, or like, what are they doing? Share this information, because I think that the most important part of this is education and awareness. And I think that's going to really change the world. And I really think this is going to change the world.
I do. I really do. There's like I said,
that's why I'm like, I know, I'm feeling it. I'm on board. We're doing it.
There's so many like I said, there's so many applications. There's so much promising research that's coming out. And whether you believe in the medicalization of it or not, whether you believe in just the full legalization or the decriminalization or the home grow or whatever it is, there's always people in the community that have various needs. So we have to keep that in mind, right? With what we're doing with the organization, everybody has different needs. Some people may be all for being able to cultivate at home and being able to self-guide and being able to do that, but that might not be appropriate, or other people might not feel comfortable ever walking down that path. We have to provide the same resources for you and for them. So medicalization, yes, I know people say, oh, big pharma, biotech, all of that stuff. And, sometimes those are nasty buzzwords, but it's important. Safety is important. Evidence base is important. And, for a lot of people that have chronic issues and things like that, being in that safe space, being with a licensed professional, having those integration tools, having that guidance, having that support, monitoring, all of that is vital in order for their personal growth too. So we get it. Everybody has different opinions on it, and that's what organizations like this are supposed to support. We're supposed to mainstream it. We're supposed to destigmatize it. We're supposed to help providers get educated on it so they can talk to patients and say, hey, this might be an option for you. Like I said, there's just so many touch points here that we just really want to be able to support our community in the most ways.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes,
and the last thing I would say, if you have any particular questions,
yes,
and things that you think will be really great topics, or some, that you can find a speaker or some sort of research or some sort of theme for one of the gatherings, I'm sure you would really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Like, what is it that's your concern? What questions do you have? What comments? That kind of thing. So send those into the comments here, and then again, share. We appreciate it. And you can see the information below for the upcoming events and gatherings. So thank you so much again, Mia.
Thank you. This is great.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.